My name is Jonathan Trappe, and I'm going to talk about a dream that I think you had when you were a little girl, when you were a little boy. Do you remember, and I don't mean this as a rhetorical technique, I mean, do you have this memory of holding on to an individual toy balloon and thinking, if I can just get enough of these, can I float away? And it's something that exists across generations, this fantasy form of flight. And unless your parents were exceptional, they told you that it was impossible. Yet the idea persists across generations. Here, Audrey Hepburn in the 1950s, and here a Dior ad from 2 years ago. The concept exists in cinema. Do you guys remember this film? 1957, The Red Balloon. Some of you saw it 3 decades ago, 4 decades ago, and remember this film. The little boy Pascal meets a sentient red balloon in the streets of Paris, and he has adventures with this balloon, and at the end of the film, the cell is taken from him and it's destroyed, and it destroys Pascal. And at that time, all of the balloons in Paris come through the streets, and they hold on to him, and he holds on to them, and he floats out over the cityscape of Paris, this classic moment of celluloid joy, with the Eiffel Tower in the background. The concept exists in literature, and if you don't consider Winnie the Pooh literature, perhaps we cannot be friends. Winnie the Pooh wanted to get to the honey. Do you guys remember this? Did you read it to your children? Did you have it read to you? Winnie the Pooh wanted to get to the honey, and he floated himself up to get to the honey, and he's getting stung by the bees, and he determines that it's the wrong sort of bees, and therefore probably the wrong sort of honey, and he wants to, importantly, he has to figure out how to get back down. And then our current generation of dreamers saying, if we could just get enough of these. So I started with one balloon in my backyard. I said, this has got to scale. If one balloon gives some unit of lift, can we just get enough of these to float away? Just like that childhood dream, the dream form of flight. I'm a technical projects manager at Accenture, big IT consulting firm, and I'm responsible for execution and delivery, much more so than dreaming, frankly. But I'm sitting in my office, and I'm thinking, after having done that experiment with one balloon, could we really do this? You know, this idea that we had, so many of us had as a child. Could I hold on to toy balloons and float away? And I'm thinking, you know, I'm going to have muscle failure. That's not going to work. We need something to do this in. And I'm in my office, and I said, we could do it in this chair that I'm sitting in right now, steel case Uno. Could we cause it to fly? The steel case Uno. So we tried that. That didn't work. But we had backups. We had additional cells. Added additional cells, made a small cluster, and caused just that gondola to float. If you were in my office building that day and looked out the 5th floor window, that's what you would have seen. And we caused just the gondola to fly. Okay, but if we're really going to do this, first, do no harm, right? Am I going to put anybody else at risk? And this is not acceptable, too. If you're going to do something like this, first, do no harm. So how would we do that? I went to flight school, the mecca of ballooning, which is Albuquerque, New Mexico. And I pursued flight school, a pilot's license, flying a hot air balloon. Notice fire going into the envelope, a hot air balloon. And after getting my check ride with the FAA examiner, I got this magic plastic card from our Federal Aviation Administration. And it says here, lighter than air, free balloon. There's a problem. Limited to hot air balloons with airborne heater. They say you can fly balloons, but only if it has an airborne heater, a way of making fire in the sky. Now, if I'm going to fly my office chair, I'm not going to have a way of making fire in the sky. There will be no airborne heater. So I get this. This is the oldest form of flight. The last time an aircraft like this is a gas balloon, had flown in my state was 20 years prior. Last time one had launched. We get that big, large helium balloon and take some of these individual cells that I argue we can fly in manned flight. And we get helium. How much helium does it take? Banks and banks and it takes a truckload, in fact, of helium to get off the ground. And with this additional training in a very, very, very unusual aircraft, but not unique, that large gas balloon over my head, I then approach the FAA again and notice the limitation is gone. So the FAA now says you can fly any balloon, and they were silent as to what that could be with that limitation gone. Technical projects manager, what do you expect, right? We've got the altimeter, the variometer, the oxygen, the emergency locator beacon, should I need it, aircraft radio, crew radio, ballast, balloons, passport, you never know. Took about a year to get to this point on the airfield where we're rigging that chair, steel case Uno, and hours through the night inflating these balloons when the winds are calm in the night, all night long. My girlfriend reads me a gas balloon checklist. She has my full attention. She argues this was the last time she had my full attention. Read me a gas balloon checklist, honey, it'll work. And I am positively buoyant here, literally positively buoyant, and emotionally positively buoyant to be off the ground, 3 feet there, 10, 20, 35 feet. I turn around and I say to my crew, see you on the other side, which wasn't the best thing to have said. It had a tone of finality to it. That wasn't implied. See you in an hour. This would be good. See you on the other side, not so much. I didn't use that one again. Floated away, up 50, 100, 150 feet, in this instance, into the sunrise. My friend on the far right of that photo turned to my girlfriend in the center just after this was taken and said, well, we'll get him back. I can show you one of the happiest moments of my life. And it's right there on the airfield. As my friend is checking the carabiner to make sure it's locked, the crew that was there all night long inflating those balloons looks on, and my girlfriend tells me to come back to her. Is this about flying an office chair? It's not. It's about dreams and inspiration and accomplishing what we set out to do, whatever that is. In this instance, 15,000 feet over North Carolina. You can see the wheels of the chair off the ground here. I think the Herman Miller people should probably stick of me saying steel case Uno, but that's what it was. Send me a Herman Miller and I'll see if I can fly it. And what more can be done? Could we go further? If we're really going to execute on this idea, what more can be done? Can we fly it higher? Could we take this little harness system with just toy balloons, these were never intended to be flown in manned flight, and go higher? 18,000 feet. 17,930 if the FAA asks, but 18,000 feet on a 10-hour flight under these toy helium balloons. And what more can be done? If we're going to fly this, can we take it further? If we're going to execute on this idea that so many of us had, could we survive the night? Guy did this in 1937, but nobody had ever survived the night. Nobody ever launched in the daytime and then greeted the sunrise from the sky the following morning. And that's what we wanted to do. After having done this a couple times, I wanted to do. And there, this is not a portrait. I'm shooting back. I'm talking to myself, doing a bag count, a ballast count, telling myself how much fuel, water, that I can drop if I don't want to come down, how much fuel I have left so I can record it. And the sun is set now, and I am not confident that I will survive the night because it hadn't been done before. And I wasn't sure what the outcome would be. And one of the outcomes is this right here. That's Air and Space, Smithsonian, our country's national museum. And you can tell I'm very proud of that. And I own that moment, and I own that image, and it's on my wall at home, and it will be there for my entire life when I look back at my life and say, the Smithsonian, our country's national museum. And we did survive the night on that flight. And what more can be done? Flying here in Mexico, I'd like to show you a little bit about what the flight experience is like. It's unlike anything else. Floating 10,000 feet above the high mountain deserts of Mexico, my feet are kicking free. It was very, very cold. I took off my jacket for the sponsors so they could see their shirt on there, and I quickly put it back on. The camera pointing down at the semi-arid deserts of Mexico. And I was supposed to fly for 10 hours. And after 8 hours, I took small arms fire from the surface, and it blew out multiple cells in rapid succession. I didn't have time to call Mayday. I started emergency ballasting. I entered immediately a very sharp descent, and I struck the earth in a huge cactus field. And I could hear the gunmen coming through the underbrush, the people who had shot me down, and I fired my EPIRB, which goes up to the US Air Force, which reached out to the Mexican authorities and initiated a military response. Men with Kevlar helmets and black masks and turret-mounted machine guns. I'm just about the most peaceful thing in the sky. I can cause harm to no one. The most dangerous thing is me, if I fall on somebody. But any manned aircraft is going to have somebody that could fall on somebody. It's inherent to a manned aircraft. And there is a great challenge that dates back centuries. Note the sharp white cliffs here and the balloon up above it. Could this be done?
Yesterday, 36-year-old Jonathan Trappe of Raleigh, North Carolina, floated across the English Channel powered only by a colorful cluster of helium-filled balloons. The kind of cluster you might see a clown hold.
Thanks.
Well, most refreshingly, Mr. Trappe didn't float through the sky to call attention to any good cause. He did it for fun. Didn't you have this dream, he asked reporters, grabbing onto a bunch of toy balloons and floating off? I think it's something that's shared across cultures and across borders, just this wonderful fantasy of grabbing onto toy balloons and floating into open space. You're listening to NPR News.
And we want now, yes, the FAA. So we approached the FAA and argued that we should be able to certificate this as an aircraft. And after about a year, what they came back with was, they said, well, the best we can figure out, it was a failure of the imagination when we wrote the regulations. Because there's nothing that should stop you from flying, as I demonstrate, having flown it multiple times under a certain part of the rules. So we got it registered as an aircraft, November 878 Uniform Papa. You can look it up in the FAA website. That registration and that magic little pink piece of paper, special airworthiness certificate, experimental manned-free balloon, model CF flying chair. But to fly the English Channel, we had to approach the Civil Aviation Authority in the UK and France. And we said, we'd like to do this. Here's our documents. They said, your pilot license is fine. Your airworthiness certificate is sub-ICAO. You cannot fly on the airworthiness certificate. You would need a special exemption to even get off the ground. You need an exemption to fly here whatsoever. And I said, can I have an exemption? And they said, OK. And they issued me the exemption. And that's it right there. I love this. Air navigation order. Jonathan Trappe's flying chair. And then there's these guys. I made the assertion we could do this. I made this assertion. What if we took hundreds of these cells in the desert of Southern California? Hundreds of these balloons inflated by more than about 100 people all night long, 14 hours, and attach it to that tiny little house there. Could we cause it to fly in manned flight? If you look out through the chimney, up at the balloons, this is what you would see, layer after layer after layer of toy helium balloons, and that airworthiness certificate that the FAA gave us. It is experimental, and it's required to have that word on the aircraft next to the mailbox. And we are off the ground here. What is this, 10 feet as I'm waving goodbye, and then we float away, 10,500 feet. Yeah, that one's neat. This is the this was done for National Geographic. The National Geographic Society has sponsored some of the greatest human expeditions of all time. I'm not sure if this qualifies, but it will be on the Nat Geo channel this Sunday. You can watch it with your family and say, hey, I know the balloon guy. CFOs of billion-dollar corporations impressing their kids by knowing the balloon guy. The irony's not lost on me, but we want realistic challenges. I think it's funny to have said that after I just showed you we flew a house. Realistic challenges. Somebody said, well, why don't you fly the Alps? My answer was, have you seen the Alps? That was my answer. We want realistic challenges. So I went to the Alps. Southeast corner of France in Gap Tallard, that little place there, trying to get over the largest mountain range in Europe into this soft pocket of Italy, launching from this tiny airfield, you see the rolling hills there and the foothills. These balloons, by the way, not ones like it, but these balloons are out in the courtyard. I would encourage you to go grab onto one and feel the lift. There's 3 sizes, so pull on the different ones that are out there. And these balloons are out there, launching, in this instance, at night, under the full moon. You see the control tower in the back left. So we float up, 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 and into the night. A 12-hour flight across the Alps and into Italy. We have a DVD segment.
Hello, Zeitgeist Minds. I told you I would try and explain a little of what it feels like to fly this system, and now is a perfect time to do it. I am high in the sky, dropping down through 13,500 feet, down from 15,000 as I crossed the Alps. Yesterday I departed in France, crossed the Alps over the night, the French Alps to the Italian Alps. It was bitter cold, and 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, I was asking if it was worth it. And when the sunrise came this morning, it was instantly apparent that it was worth every moment. You can see what we're flying is the balloon system I've been telling you about, November 87 Uniform Papa, that gas cluster. And this is what it's like. Listen. There's no sound, there's no rotor, there's no prop, there's no jet. There's nothing between me and the sky.
And what more can be done? If we're really going to execute on this, what more can be done? There is an epic challenge that has called to aviators for generations. And I won't stand here at Zeitgeist and tell you that I can do it. Instead, I put it to you. Can it be done? I'd like very much to know. And I'd like it very much if this conversation didn't end when I leave the stage, because I'd like it very much if you were there when I find out that it can be done, and I'd like it very much if you were there if I found out that it can't be done. You understand? I understand. And yet, that dream persists. I'm going to close the session on this. I said at the beginning of this segment that unless your parents were exceptional, they told you that it couldn't be done. This audience, Zeitgeist Minds, I know who you are, you know who you are. This audience is exceptional, and I don't think this audience will tell their children that it's impossible. And knowing who this audience is, I very much appreciate the opportunity to have come and talked about something that I love, and you know that I love it. So with that, I'm going to close. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Thank you very much.